What's up, everybody? Welcome to 5v5 live on Schalke eSports. That's Eric Kummel.
Yep.
I'm Matt Hempstead, and yesterday was a pretty crazy day.
Woo!
All kind of roster moves taking place in the opening day of the transfer period, and it continued today to a certain degree. Not too much breaking news, a couple of things happening. Let's jump right into it. There's no time to waste. There's all this.
I wasn't going to waste any time.
Well,
but now we are. Look at this.
We just wasted a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Let's start with Echo Fox. The contracts of Keith, Looper, Froggen expired, and they elected not to re-sign. Apparently, they're electing not to re-sign any of those guys, not renew those contracts, and...
Okay, that's fine. They got someone good in mind, so that's fine.
Right. There must be a lot of these guys who they're looking at to bring onto the team.
Mm-hmm.
But their first addition to this new squad is Phoenix, Eric. Phoenix, the former Team
Phoenix
Liquid
won.
mid laner. Yeah, no, not the team. The Korean
Phoenix.
mid laner, Phoenix. He took off last split, wasn't playing. Before that was with GCU in the spring promotion or the summer promotion tournament, and in that split, and of course Team Liquid back in the day.
Now, upon first look, that looks like an immediate downgrade from Froggen. Probably because it is. I mean, that's a very interesting move for Echo Fox. We both kind of thought Acadian and Froggen are probably the two guys they keep going forward, and you build the team up around them. But now it looks like they're both gone. And they're keeping some of these guys who were subs last year. It sounds like possibly. They might not end up keeping them, but they're still on there. Maybe going to fill out their challenger team. But I don't know about Phoenix in that mid lane. I mean, this guy hasn't played in the LCS in a pretty long time, and even towards the end, he was a little bit underwhelming on Liquid. So if I'm doing early power rankings when half the teams don't have any rosters, I'm putting Echo Fox at 10 right now.
Even with Golden Guardians having nobody, they still go above Echo Fox because, I don't know, to use an import slot on someone you didn't see last split, and even back then he was on the Challenger Series with GCU on a team that wasn't that great. Again, he was probably one of the better parts of that team, but still overall, you look at that roster and it's like, I don't know. And Phoenix just, again, you mentioned the Team Liquid days. At times he was great, but he was also benched at certain periods of that on his tenure in Team Liquid. So I'm not sold on it. I don't think it's worth an import slot. Along with Ryu, I didn't think he'd be on an NALCS team this split. Turns out they both are, with guys that you would think are more talented, potentially available, like Bevan, like Power of Evil. Again, we don't know what they're up to, if they're going to stay in EU, come to NA, but I would at least look at those guys and be like, hey, you want to come over, before signing a guy like Phoenix and saying as an organization that this is going to help us win Worlds, because that seems false.
Yeah, I mean, the team said they're hoping that Phoenix can be the foundation to lead to a 2018 LCS title championship. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case. Maybe they did reach out to some of these guys, and maybe the asking price was too high. Maybe they got Phoenix at a discount price or a cheaper price, which I kind of hope they would have if they were getting him. But I mean, maybe the rest of this roster is something very interesting. Maybe they're saving up a bunch of money that they maybe saved on Phoenix for some other guys. But yeah, that's already using up an import slot. And there's still some mid laners out there. Febevin's been rumored, as you talked about. Power of Evil. High's still around, although again, High and Phoenix might be a little comparable. But High's communication is a lot better. And even a guy like Keen, I mean, Keen, maybe Phoenix is better than Keen, but just the fact that Keen is domestic, I'd probably rather have Keen than Phoenix even in the mid lane.
Yeah, and you saw what he could do last split. Again, he's probably not going to take over too many games, but he was holding his own against guys like Bjergsen and stuff like that. So I'd rather
bad in the
Keen
playoffs, though.
Yeah, he wasn't great, but I still prefer him over Phoenix, this unproven guy we haven't seen in over half a year now. So it's a weird move. I don't love it. And again, the ESPN report said that he would be looked at as someone who would be the starting mid laner. So it's not even that he's going to go on this academy roster. They want to start Phoenix. That's what they want to do. You mentioned the other guys like Greg and Brandini and whatnot. I'm sure they'll be on the academy team. I hope they're on the academy team, because if that's the roster they're rolling out, I'm disappointed in what they have accomplished going into LCS with the whole franchising thing. So rough start. I don't love the move, but they seem to be pretty okay with it.
Yeah, I just don't understand why you would pick him over Froggen if they're both going to be taking up an import slot. Maybe Froggen wanted out. Maybe he said, I don't want to play on this team anymore. Goodbye. And, I mean, his contract was up. He didn't want to sign a new one. Not much you can do. So I feel like that had to have been the case because, yeah, on paper, I mean, Froggen is definitely better than Phoenix.
Yeah, if you're tipping the scales, it definitely goes in the Froggen favor.
I would say so.
For sure. Other news that pretty much just happened is C9 adding some players. Licorice, which we've already discussed, the top laner, going to be joining C9, along with Wiggly and Selfie, who play with Tempo Storm in the Challenger Series. They were also part of Phoenix one, but never actually hit the Rift. So that's 3 new additions for Cloud9. And if you're wondering out there, being like, what's happening with Jensen? What's going on with contracts? Yeah, well, they're not very good, in case you didn't notice. But contracts and Jensen, obviously still the starting talent with Cloud9. These guys will be joining the academy team, no doubt. Licorice, the one guy who could potentially move up to the starting Cloud9 role, because after seeing the report, my impression was that they wanted to bring back Impact, but he elected they go to Team Liquid. But at least now they have this backup plan with Licorice if they don't find someone else. Or maybe they just like Licorice a lot and he's going to be the guy who starts. But either way, Wiggly and Selfie, for me, on this academy team. I like the move. They're probably some of the best available talent on that Challenger Series. So they're kind of hoarding guys on that academy roster.
Yeah, and I think maybe Selfie and Wiggly are guys that could have maybe gotten a shot at starting on some rosters. They've had a decent amount of hype. Their Challenger squad was pretty solid. So, I mean, it's pretty sweet to be a backup, even if you're on the academy team for a very established organization like Cloud9. So I think both guys are happy with that. And yeah, Licorice should just give some opportunities, some options for Cloud9. I'm sure they'll be looking at other top laners that they could maybe bring in. But if the price is too high, like $1 million, maybe they'll be okay. They'll be happy having Licorice in that top lane and kind of grooming him to the kind of player they want him to be.
Yeah, I don't think Licorice costs $1 million.
I mean, you could buy $1 million of Licorice.
Yes, that's a lot of Licorice.
It lasts me a while.
A week. Yeah, a week. Let's get to the really good stuff.
The juicy stuff.
And of course, it involves none other than Team Liquid, because yesterday we talked about Doublelift news. Before that, Pro Belter, Eric Smithy, Cody's son joining.
Insanity.
Just a lot going on. But now it looks like their full roster is pretty much ready to be announced. Team Liquid saying that they will make an announcement at some point today. And from what we know, the roster looks a lot like this, with Impact in the top lane.
Looks a lot like this.
Exactly like this. Smithy in the jungle, Pro Belter at mid, Doublelift ADC, and Olleh turn up this lineup at support. We had heard rumblings of a Korean support coming along, and Olleh does fit that bill.
He is Korean.
He is Korean.
That is correct.
So, I mean, look at this roster. That is insane. Steve, not concerned about his cash flow whatsoever. Just shipping that money to whoever's interested, and man, that looks good. I mean, 3 former CLG members, 3 former Immortal members. Doublelift has played with Pro Belter and Smithy before. Olleh, same deal. So it should be some decent chemistry off the top and a lot of playmaking.
Yeah, I mean, those are all guys who have experience on the top teams in NA. So yeah, that looks like a top 3 team for sure heading into the split. We'll see what the synergy is like for Doublelift and Olleh down there. We'll see if communication is an issue. But I mean, Cody's-san and Olleh were one of the premier bot lanes in the regular season last year. So it should be pretty solid. And again, another question mark is how Smithy and Pro Belter feel about playing with Doublelift. I mean, yeah, on paper, that's a pretty talented roster at every position. You got a pretty solid player. So that should definitely be a top 3 team, maybe 4th, but we don't want the Liquid meme, the 4th place Liquid meme. That should be a top 3 team. That's pretty solid.
It'd be hard not to. I mean, you acquire Doublelift and Olleh. Olleh considered one of the best playmakers in North America last season. Now joining this Team Liquid roster to kind of round up the entire lineup, which already has Impact, which is a rock in the top lane. Smithy and Pro Belter, 2 guys that hold their own. They might not necessarily take over these games and win them single-handedly, but they can definitely hold their own and potentially take over in some situations. And you have Doublelift, who, when I look at this team, he's going to be the main carry on this roster. I'm not saying it's going to be like old CLG where everyone's shoveling resources to him and just putting those shields and heals onto the guy, but he looks like the main carry on this team. Impact, again, more known for his tank play. Maybe they'll have a potential sub situation with Lorlo if he stays on the team. Even Matt potentially checking in if the Olleh thing doesn't work, because we know Doublelift and Matt have been duo queuing in the past, also just this past week. So there's a lot going on, and we don't know who's going to stay on this Team Liquid roster from everyone they have. They have a million junglers. They've got a couple extra mid laners, now an extra AD carry in Cody's son, and extra support in Matt. So, I mean, who are they going to keep? Who are they going to sell? What contracts are going where? Still a lot of questions, but that looks like the starting roster.
Yeah, and if that's your starting roster, I mean, a guy like Cody's son should not be playing on an academy team. There's obviously going to be teams who are throwing out offers at Team Liquid, and I imagine they're going to make a hefty chunk of change off some of these contracts that they're holding on to because, yeah, guys like Cody's son, Rainover, Dardoch, I'm sure these are guys that teams will probably take a chance on for their starting roster. So there's going to be a lot more information still coming out of Team Liquid, even if this is established as their starting roster. My only main concern with that roster is there might not be enough carry threats. Yeah, Double is probably going to be the main carry, but Pobelter isn't historically a guy who is the main carry threat on his team. And Impact, mostly, for the most part, has been playing tanks lately. So maybe, I don't know, who gets that secondary carry role? Does it go on Xmithy to get things rolling? Or maybe you put a little bit more carry pressure on Pobelter. But we'll see. They should be able to figure it out. And you saw Olleh and Xmithy had, when they were playing well, maybe pre-week 2 at Worlds, they were some of the best jungle support synergy, best vision control, and best just roaming around the map, getting other lanes ahead. So if they can get back to that, then it's going to be a scary team.
Yeah, one of the best things about Immortals was watching Olleh help get Pobelter going in the mid lane just by moving up, finding some kills, going into the jungle with Xmithy, and it worked out really well. So it'll be interesting to see what that Immortals core can do now with Impact and Doublelift joining this new Liquid Immortals CLG mashup weird roster. But I mean, as you said, it looks like a top 3 unit, and I'd be surprised to see Team Liquid finish 4th or lower. Again, lots still to come with a lot of unfinished rosters. Yeah, but that's a good start.
There might be some insane imports that are still coming in, and like Golden Guardians, as we said, there's no one. There's no one on the team.
Nice team.
Except for Shifter, right?
You're right.
Shifter's on the team.
Yeah, great league, Shifter.
Great league. So yeah, it's still way up in the air, but this should be a top team. And if there's some other stacked rosters that are coming up, it's going to be traffic at the top of the NALCS standings in 2018, which will be exciting.
Yeah. Now, a couple days ago, I was looking through Twitter.
As you do.
And I noticed something kind of suspect. One way to kind of seemingly track where players are going is to look at who people have followed lately.
Ah, yes.
And I went on Doublelift's feed, and I saw that he recently followed Olleh. Okay, maybe that means something, maybe it doesn't. I went on to Steve's Twitter. Oh, his most recent follow was Olleh. Well, now this is a little weird. Steve signs Doublelift. Now Olleh goes on. Okay, so with that in mind, obviously it's not a concrete way of figuring out who's going where, but it's definitely one way of doing it. If I get a job offer, you go and you follow that team. Yeah. It makes sense. Though in the situation where we're trying not to leak something, generally you don't.
Maybe wait till the signing is official. There's been some announcement, but you got to do what you got to do.
So with that said, Eric and I went through a couple of other Twitter accounts of some free agents, and we're like, I wonder if they followed anyone that's kind of suspect. And we actually found a good amount of people.
Yes.
And it could potentially give us some insight into where they're going. Again, this is by no means...
This is not official.
No.
This is purely speculatory.
Yes.
There are no sources here. The only sources are the player's Twitter feed. Yes. Not official.
We are bootleg red detectives, basically.
Yeah. But it's possible. It's interesting and curious.
It is. So let's start with the first one. I believe it's Dardoch.
Oh, boy.
And, prior to the news today, it made a lot more sense because I'd be like, oh, let's go join Froggen on Echo Fox. But you look at some of these follows. Obviously, Rick Fox is a big one.
Yep.
Nick Smith, head coach of Echo Fox, is a big one. And he threw
shade. The guy he would likely replace as starting jungler, he decided to follow as well. That's a lot of Echo Fox information. But yeah, the fact that they have Phoenix now, maybe Dardoch's like, oh no. He's played with Phoenix before.
Yeah.
Dardoch's first stint on Team Liquid didn't go so well. A lot of issues behind the scenes going on. So maybe those two don't want to be reunited, but that's a lot of Echo Fox shout-outs going on by Dardoch.
So who knows? Potentially Dardoch to Echo Fox. Again, Team Liquid's got to get rid of some of those junglers, and if Echo Fox is interested in taking that contract on, they already got rid of Acadian, so a jungle position is available. We'll see if he joins Phoenix.
It's a possibility. Think of a possibility.
Right.
Dardoch to Echo Fox. Not confirmed.
Not even close to confirmed.
Not even close.
Very mildly speculatory.
Very mild.
Yeah, that's right. Next up.
More junglers.
Is our boy Meteos, who has been following. You can ignore Flame and Netflix US. I guess in the offseason he's been a little bored and wants to see what new shows are hitting Netflix, obviously.
Who doesn't?
Almost everyone on planet Earth has followed 100 Thieves Nade Shot in the past while. But not everyone has also followed 100 Thieves, the team.
And now a lot of players have basically followed every new team in the LCS. The fact that Meteos has only done 100 Thieves and Nade Shot is curious.
It is.
It's a little curious. He's kind of hinted that he wants to get back into the pro scene. Obviously, he's a domestic jungler, formerly the best jungler in NA. I'm sure some of these teams wouldn't mind having him. He's got a pretty solid fan base behind him. So that's interesting. It's interesting. And
Meteos has played with Ryu.
There you go.
Previously as well. So who knows? Maybe they're building that bootleg Phoenix One roster back up from the ground floor.
Yeah,
don't recommend it, but
not the key guys people wanted from that team. Probably Rio and Meteos, but you gotta work with what you got.
You do. Now the next two probably not as hyped up, but no, never mind. Febiven's pretty hyped up.
Febiven's pretty hyped. We got a couple EU fellas.
Yes, and some optic connections here.
Boy, he's handsome.
Yeah, look, there's that generic 100T Nade Shot fellow that everyone has, but Zabutin, the optic head coach, and the owner.
Yeah, owner and CEO. Now, usually, sure, you're following players, you're following head coaches. The owner of a team isn't something you're usually like, oh, I'm going to give it a quick follow, unless there's maybe something more going on here. So that's an interesting one. Febiven potentially to optic. Join Acadian over there.
That's solid.
Febiven definitely worth an import slot, I would say.
Yeah, 100% he is. And I mean, you pair him with Acadian already. That's a pretty good starting squad so far. I mean, Acadian, you saw that he had a good start to his career. Yeah. Kind of fell off after, and I don't know how much you attribute that to.
Ever since the drive video.
Ever since the drive video, since he stepped in that Lambo, it all went downhill. But another possibility based on Twitter follows, so almost a sure. I'm not even going to say almost a sure thing, because I know you guys will take it and be like, these guys are idiots.
Furthest thing from a sure thing.
Yes.
But it is curious.
It's curious. And the last one, Gilius, another guy who's definitely wanted to come back.
He's still around.
Into the pro scene. One of those guys to put out the news being like, I've got good news for you guys. I'm back in the LCS, whatever. And the one team he follows is Team Vitality. Mixed in with
Hotshot GG?
Yeah, Hotshot GG, Lars, some weird looking catfish account, which we're not going to click on whatsoever.
Definitely not.
But that seems like a connection as well. For Gilius, a guy who's been wanting to come back for a while.
Yeah, it's one thing to follow all the new teams coming into the NALCS, but if you're following Team Vitality, you feel like there's got to be some potential association with them there. So, again, something to monitor. Something to monitor there. And there might be more comings and goings, followings and unfollows with a lot of these free agents going forward. So, you got to stay on your toes and pay attention to what's going on. I don't know why these guys can't just wait until it's official to follow some of these guys. Sometimes you're literally waiting like 24 hours. Just don't follow Olleh until you sign him.
That's it.
But maybe Liquid Steve wanted that. He has fully embraced memery.
Yes.
And he's overloading on memes right now.
He doesn't care what he says. He's very willing to give out information. He appeared on Travis's show the other day and pretty much gave up a bunch of information. So
So there's going to be a roster reveal today. Who knows what that could entail? A roster reveal could be like, we have 14 players. Here they are.
That's going to be a long reveal.
That's
a very
not really
long
a roster reveal. You're just listing the players you've signed. So we'll see what it actually is.
We will definitely see. Obviously, the other biggest news, more from yesterday than from today, though I guess it keeps escalating, is this TSM shakeup. Now with Doublelift leaving, it seems more concrete that Sven and Mithy are going to be the guys. And it was initially reported from this guy who usually covers CSGO.
Reliable source in CSGO.
Yes. And then he had this information come to him, so he released it saying that Sven and Mithy were going to TSM. Now that same guy has said that Mike Young will join them as a jungler of TSM.
Which, again, people have kind of thought might be a possibility. One of the few domestic junglers yet, but they're left. But there hasn't been any proof or anything until this. Again, this isn't proof, but it's more concrete rumors. I'll say again, this guy a super reliable source in the CSGO community. And so it looks like it's going to be Sven and Mithy and Mike Young on TSM.
Which is pretty crazy. And again, everything just makes so much sense when you bring this on. You know, as Sven and Mithy come, you need a new jungler that needs to be domestic. Mike Young fits that role. Yep. Svenska would still need to go somewhere else, whether it's a buyout or sell that contract to somebody. But, I mean, again, this roster, you compare it to Team Liquid's, and you'd say TSM's is better still. Yep. But, I mean, that roster is stacked from top to bottom. Mike Young, probably the only question mark based on the amount of time you've seen him play in the LCS.
There is going to be an insane amount of pressure on him.
Yes, there definitely is. I mean, you have all these guys to get rolling. It's almost the opposite effect of Team Liquid, where they may not have enough carries. TSM has a ton of carries. Yeah. Pretty much every single role, except for Mithy at support, can take over these games.
Yeah, and for Mike Young, it's basically the opposite of P1. You have nothing going in pretty much any of the lanes. Yeah. You got to run around and do everything. This, it's like, okay, all my lanes are pretty sweet, and I'm kind of the question mark where it's like, before when he wasn't playing as well the second half with P1, it was like, yeah, but look at that team he's on. Now you don't have that excuse because you're like, oh, he's struggling, and yeah, look what team he's on, because everyone's insane across the board. So all the pressure is going to be on Mike Young here. Obviously, Sven and Mithy will be looked at because, I mean, even Doublelift and Biofrost were a little inconsistent, at least during the first half of the split last year, but Sven and Mithy obviously going to have a lot of eyes on them as well. But Mike Young is the unproven commodity on this roster, and you know you're under the microscope on TSM, and they've gone through quite a few junglers in the last couple of years, and a lot of them have slowly been broken down and just destroyed by the team, by fans, by the entire world. So yeah, let's see what he can handle.
Who knows how Sven and Mithy changes that approach. Maybe they won't turn their jungler into a passive moving ward, which would be nice, because Mike Young, what made him so interesting was his aggression and his desire to make plays. Even when he was behind, he still tried to do something, whether it was on that Nidalee, that Lee Sin, whatever he was playing. He was active, and he was exciting to watch. So I want to see that style on TSM. We haven't seen that. It wasn't at Worlds, that's for sure. And it probably wasn't since Svenskeren initially came on TSM. No one has that aggressive EU jungler. So if Mike Young comes along and opens up this map with the help of 3 winning lanes more often than not, then who knows what can happen. But hopefully they change from this passive sit-back team, which was kind of based on the meta as well, to this early game, let's get things rolling and snowball these early leads kind of team. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and again, he probably at worst, Mike Young has top 2 in every position on his team. So he's got a lot to work with here. We'll see what he can do. I want this roster to be made official so we can fully talk about this. It sounds like it's pretty official, but it's not official yet. But I think it will be soon, and then we can really dive into what this team's. Well, we know what the expectations are, what they'll be able to do.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm waiting for that TSM announcement, which is
let's
inevitable.
Hear Reggie, Bay Life.
We're ready. All right. Before we get to your questions, a couple more things we're going to talk about. We're going to hit EU pretty quick, even though it's been fairly quiet for the most part. The one thing that's kind of been solidified is that Schalke is the one team to have a roster.
So and they're the favorites right now.
They've been spending money, and they're the only team with a full roster, so they're definitely the favorites. But it's not this mishmash. It's a pretty decent-looking team, I got to say, with some surprises, because Vizicachi is sitting up there in the top lane, someone who was apparently deciding between G2 and Schalke, and he elected to go with Schalke. So that's an excellent building block to start off a team in the top lane. Then you rounded it with Pride Stalker from Rockcat, Nuke Duck, Upset, and Vander.
That's a pretty solid roster, really, especially, again, with how many question marks there are in EU outside of Fnatic. And I say G2, but I can't even say G2 right now because it's Perks and 4 question marks. So who knows what they could be putting together. So this really could be a pretty solid team. I think it all kind of depends on Pride Stalker. I mean, still obviously relatively new to the scene. He had moments on Rockcat. He'd go a couple weeks where he looked really solid, and then a couple weeks where it was like, that's very questionable. But I mean, Upset, a guy who's super hyped coming out from the challenger scene. Nuke Duck has been hyped for 3 years, but I mean, he actually had a pretty solid 2017 season, despite Vitality not being that great. And Vander, I think he's past his prime, but I mean, we'll see. I think that's still going to be a pretty solid bot lane, and that looks like a pretty good team. I'm impressed by Schalke there.
Yeah, Vander seems to make sense with having a young AD carry and upset, maybe dial him back and play the veteran role in that lane. So I do like the addition, though would have been interesting to see who else was available. But yeah, for Schalke, I mean, you've had Nuke Duck sitting on these mid-tier teams for what seems like forever, and now you need to take that step into the upper echelon, especially with maybe some of these EU teams being weaker. It'd be nice to see Vizichaji kind of take the reins of this team, and with the help of Pride Stalker, who you mentioned, someone who has a bit of hype, but struggled on a weak Rockhat lineup. I mean, it doesn't help when you have a top laner that occasionally goes 0-13. It's not usually a good thing when you're
playing.
Is that not ideal? Well, they did win that game, so.
It is ideal, I guess.
It is ideal. It's a 100% win rate. But, I mean, we'll have to see what they can do. Hopefully Nuke Duck can get going with that big top lane presence. I know he's played with Cabochard in the past too, but Cabochard's another guy who's been hyped up for what seems like forever. So it's an interesting lineup. Schalke not afraid to spend money, and they did it quickly.
Yeah, and Upset and Vander tweeted out earlier, you know, me and my son, picture of him Upset. So he's definitely embracing that mentor role in that bottom lane. So I think that'll be a pretty exciting team to keep track of in the EU LCS.
I agree. The other EU news being that Maxlore is re-signing with Misfits, and it was a great
prime announcement video.
It was fantastic. If you haven't seen it, go to Maxlore's Twitter and check it out. It was fantastic the way he announced it. So, I mean, not overly surprising because he was still under contract with Misfits, and now he's rejoining Hansama and Alfari, I believe, though I don't think Alfari has actually been confirmed yet. Hansama is definitely going back. Ignar, PoE, up in the air.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like either of them are coming back to Misfits, but who knows? I mean, it's been a pretty wild offseason so far. I really have no idea where either of those guys are going to end up.
No clue. But that's been EU. It's been fairly quiet. A lot being figured out, I guess, other than the H2K news of Jankos and Odwame being free agents and them signing Cadril and Sheriff. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, G2, again, 4 question marks. Jankos, who knows where he's headed. Odwame, both of those guys have kind of, rumors have been swirling. They're looking at NA, fielding offers from NA and EU. It kind of seemed like there might be a G2 EU super team with those two, but I'm not so sure anymore. It seems like they might be going a different direction. So I'm really not sure if G2 is actually going to have a solid roster. I kind of just assumed they're going to be amazing coming into the split, but I'm not so sure anymore. A lot of question marks.
A lot of question marks, especially if Perks has been poking around where he shouldn't be. I don't want to get into that. I don't know enough information about
poaching issue.
Once
we know more about that.
Yeah, if anything. We don't know if it's good yet. Anyways, let's ignore that. Sweep it under the rug.
Sweep it.
Finally, send in your questions because we're almost there. But finally, we're up with some LCK news.
Woo!
Longzhu, Samsung Galaxy, and of course, KT Rolster. And by of course, I mean, wait, KT Rolster? They've all decided to just bring back their entire rosters, which is surprising, especially for KT, that disappointing performance, missing out on Worlds basically on 3 different occasions.
Yeah.
They're all coming back. So if you're the LCK, 3 of the top 4 teams are not changing out anybody. And if you're SKT, that's scary.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most pressure on SKT that they'll have faced heading into the LCK because, those 3 top teams, only 3 teams get the Worlds, and those 3 should all make it. KT definitely should have. And SKT, also another camp that's been pretty quiet. We know Peanuts probably not coming back. Bengi's coming in as a coach, but I mean, that's about all you've heard out of them. What are these guys going to be doing there? I mean, this KT team, though, I thought for sure they were not going to be sticking together. They went through some very painful losses last year, and, you know, these are all star guys, could get a lot of money in a lot of different places, but they all decided to stick together, which I respect. Samsung, you win the World Championship, I mean, might as well come back.
Makes sense. Some people were thinking maybe Ambition would call it quits.
Yeah.
But he is also sticking around, so World Champion's going to stick together, which is always exciting if they can repeat. And then Longzhu, despite the disappointing Worlds performance, they too will be sticking with it again. Obviously, talented roster. They won LCK. Might as well bring it back and see what you can do with more experience under your belt with BDD getting more chemistry with the team.
Yeah, and the Prey and Gorilla rumors were ended pretty quickly.
Short-lived.
As they re-signed. I don't see any reason for breaking that team up. And it's nice to see some of these super strong teams in the LCK stick together, because it seems like almost every new spring split, it's entirely new rosters across the board. And then SKT keeps its main core, switches out a top laner or a jungler, and they're the favorites again. But so the fact that these three super strong Korean teams are all sticking together again, SKT, whew, I can see why Impact didn't want that pressure. And $1 million to stay in NA. Probably also.
Apparently.
Alleged.
Yes.
$1 million. But I don't know what there's not that much left in Korea for SKT to bring in. I mean, people were kind of like maybe Score goes over there, but nope, staying with KT. So I don't know what they're going to do in that top lane and jungle. And again, there's not many rumors. Are they keeping Wolf and Bang over there? A lot of question marks for the 3-time champs.
Yeah, and they're going to have to put together a pretty good roster to compete with these other 3 units that are going to stay together. Mm-hmm. Last order of business before questions, Eric, is DX Racer chairs. They're very comfy, Eric.
They're not so bad.
I noticed you seem pretty content.
I'm very relaxed.
Yeah, you are. So if you want one of these guys, they're very good, I swear to God. Go to dxracer.com.
Oh, okay.
Use promo code SHOTCAUSE for 15% off your purchase.
That's not even a Black Friday sale. That's just all the time.
It's a normal Wednesday sale. And by normal Wednesday, I mean every day of the week Wednesday.
Every day of the week Wednesday. Every day of the week is Wednesday going forward.
Yeah, nothing like hump day. I wish it was every day, Eric.
That's what I'm saying. Good call. Good call.
Thanks, man. All right.
Question time. I'm sure there's a lot of questions because I have a lot of questions because there are a lot of empty roster slots still and a lot of free agents lurking in the shadows. That's what they do, right?
Yes,
they lurk in the shadows, these free agents.
They do. They don't do anything else with their free time except for lurk.
And Netflix, as we learned by media.
And catfish, as we learned from Gilly. So.
Got to get some catfish going on.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Here we go. Elliot says, that's Soaz's girlfriend at Schalke eSports, the catfish.
Really?
Apparently. We didn't click on the thing because we were concerned about our
Gilius.
Our thing
I see what you're trying to do.
Is that better or worse? Maybe catfishing was better. Anyways, Henry Kuhlman, Power of Evil, just followed Cody's son and Team Liquid. It's true. No, it's not. You can't. All right, there's rules.
Yeah.
There's rules. Everyone also followed Team Liquid for the memes.
Yeah, I think some guys are memeing pretty hard where they follow every new team or they just follow Steve and Team Liquid. I can't see Team Liquid signing PoE. That would be insane, and the entire system would be broken if that's what happened. So,
I feel you.
You feel me?
I feel you. A lot of people followed Cody's son too, which is weird. He was one of the most recent guys as well.
He's a popular guy.
Everyone loves him.
Fella.
Have you heard about the new G2 bot lane? Latest rumor is Forgiven and Wadid, apparently. Wadid. It goes both ways.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay.
I haven't heard that rumor.
I haven't heard that either. We kind of thought maybe Forgiven should go to G2. That'd be fun with perks. But as far as I had heard, I thought no one was talking to Forgiven. He was in talks with no one, and people just didn't seem that interested in him. Maybe that's changed. Wadid is questionable. That
doesn't seem to make much sense. Maybe he's someone who doesn't understand Forgiven that well. But I heard, based on Hjarnan and Wadid's Twitter, that they're going somewhere together. So that rumor doesn't seem to be true for me because, again, Hjarnan shared out a tweet saying something along the lines of, update, me and Wadid will be back in the LCS next split.
I mean, they could both be in there on different teams.
Right, but I doubt it. That would be confusing to reference each other in the tweet and then Wadid retweet that as well. So I'm not buying that. Maybe Forgiven is, but I've heard nothing along those lines.
If it is, that doesn't sound like a world-beating bottom lane for G2.
No.
So
it definitely does not. Danny167 says, do you think Frogman will go back to EU or will another NA team pick him up?
I imagine he would stay in NA. He seemed pretty comfortable there. I think for sure some of these teams without a mid laner right now would be interested in him. I'm sure some a lot weren't expecting him to be available. So the fact that he's now in that open market, I think, I mean, teams that don't have a mid laner, FlyQuest, Optic, Golden Guardians, they don't have anything. So I think like any of those three teams probably be interested in having a guy like Frog, and why wouldn't you? He's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great player.
I mean, I'm sure he's probably going to be fielding offers from both sides, the NA side and the EU side. But yeah, as you said, there's some spots available in North America, whether it's FlyQuest, whether it's these NBA teams, that makes sense. And Froggen's a good building block. He will win that mid lane and he will get a CS. I guess one concern, maybe a reason Echo Fox did move on from Froggen, is that they put different pieces around him for a couple of years now and it hasn't panned out. So is he the problem?
Great pieces.
No, they weren't great pieces. You're absolutely right. So maybe Echo Fox just wanted to change the pace. But I mean, I would be okay with Froggen, especially if you're one of these new NA teams. It's a big face with a big fan base, and it's a good place to start.
He does have a big face.
That's exactly what I meant, Eric. Yeah. Thank you very much. Shed Blood, who do you think of the 4 new teams will have the best split based on their current rumored rosters? So let's just go through the rosters real quick, because Optic is Acadian. That's it. Clutch Gaming is Lyra, Apollo, and Hagho, so they get the most full roster, and it's a team that's played together so far.
But 100 Thieves has Prawley
and Ryu.
Some synergy
that's
there.
The bad start. And Golden Guardians is empty.
Shifter.
Stop with the Shifter nonsense.
Shifter's not going to be on that team.
No.
So, I mean, it's pretty hard to speculate when 3 out of 5 is the biggest roster there.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to go with Optic or Golden Guardians because an empty slate, I mean, they could have a way more stacked team than some of these guys. I mean, the Envy squad, that's probably, I can't see them being more than a middle tier squad in that 5 to 8 range. I can't really see them going beyond that. That's kind of where Envy finished, and unless they get some significant upgrades, which, by the way, you could get a pretty significant upgrade over Seraph in the top lane. And they still have an import slot for that mid lane, so maybe they get something like Froggen and a solid domestic top laner. Then maybe they're a little better, but I don't see them finishing above like 5th with that core. But maybe they will. It's too many question marks to actually think where these teams are going to finish yet.
Yeah, I think Optic is probably best set up for an okay run. I mean, as you said, Clutch Gaming is just, we've seen the Envy roster before, and it's okay, but it's also not going to blow you away. And I think potentially with what Optic is building, Acadian's a good young start in the jungle, and then potentially bringing on one of these EU mids that we mentioned before, a Fevin, a Power of Evil, already having that mid-jungle core looks solid. So based on what I've seen, I mean, Ryu at 100 Thieves doesn't excite me at all. And I know Ryu could potentially be good with Prawley joining him again, but I'm going to go with Optic here. Golden Guardians are just no information. So
yeah, that means they could have a pretty insane team.
I mean, yeah, if you hate what every other team is doing, then you go with Golden Guardians in that conversation.
That's right.
A couple questions about Cloud9. Do you guys think C9 should sign someday, since they had a lot more success with Impact than Balls, or even a guy like Flame? 2 Korean guys who would basically just be a plug and play for what Impact was doing, except minus the synergy.
Yeah, it sounds like both those guys are kind of leaning towards playing in the LCK, going back to Korea. So I'm not so sure. I kind of think it might be good for them to go with Licorice and just kind of have that domestic mid laner that they can kind of grow and see what he's like and see how well he can play on the LCS stage and see if they can groom him. But I understand, obviously, they're going to be looking at other top laners. I don't know if someday would work that well with the kind of play style that C9 plays, where they're focusing a lot on Jensen and a lot on the bottom lane and just kind of contracts going wild in the jungle. I don't know if that's a play style that would suit someday and some of these carry champions that he likes playing. Yes, he can play tanks, but he likes playing those carry guys, and I don't know if that would suit Cloud9 that well. Yeah,
and I'm not entirely convinced that they're not okay with having Licorice in that starting lineup. I think that's like a perfectly fine option, but they're going to explore and see what's out there. But as you mentioned, Flame and Someday look like they want to go back to Korea. They were talking to Kespa, being like, "Let us back in, please."
Is that them knocking on the door?
It was. Okay. It was a subtle knock, though.
It's pretty quiet. I don't think Kespa heard them.
Probably not, but it looks like they might not be staying in North America. If they do, then for sure Cloud9's talking to them. But other than that, I'm not too sure. Potentially some of these EU guys, but I haven't heard anything. So the only thing I've really heard about Cloud9's top lane situation is Impact leaving and Liquor signing. So
that's where we're at right now.
That's where we're at. Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
5680. How do you think C9 roster can match up to new Team Liquid TSM, and how do they improve? I mean, where they match up right away is that they have the same roster, which is an early advantage no matter what. You have that chemistry in place to have at least 4 members doing the exact same thing with your top laner, usually on some sort of island for most of the game, minus TP plays. Puts you in a good spot going into Spring Split, where generally these teams have these brand new rosters, a la Team Liquid, TSM. They're going to take some time to get together and find out what strategy works, how do we play together, whatnot. So C9, they have the veteran lineup. They have these guys who have played together, and that's how they'll start off initially very well, and then we'll have to see how they can hold up once these teams reach their potentials.
Yeah, I mean, based on what we've seen of those 3 rosters right now, those are probably the top 3 teams heading into the split. And yeah, I think Cloud9 does have that edge, unless they're changing one of those core 4 guys, which I would be shocked if they change heading into the split. Then they're obviously going to have an advantage over pretty much every other team, unless Afro comes back to CLG and they field literally the exact same roster that they had last split. But it seems like something's going to be changing there. So, I mean, Cloud9's definitely got the edge there across 9 other teams, because they're at most changing 1 player. Well, they're definitely changing 1 player. But that's it. Not much of a change.
Not much of a change at all. And if you're going to change a role and get away with the least amount of impact, that pun was not intentional.
Nice.
The top lane's the one to do.
80 carry's pretty good too.
Yeah, I suppose. But then you have the bot
Yeah,
support synergy.
I guess
either way. Christian Ramirez, do you think Jankos will go with Ryu and Prolly to 100 Thieves? I know he's looking at NA. Of course, he's also looking at EU, but I don't know if 100 Thieves is the most desirable location based on the blocks he already has. I mean, he's been with Ryu and Prolly before, and it was fine. It wasn't terrible, but obviously it's always an option to go back to your former coach. There might be other potential opportunities. One that stands out, obviously, is Counter Logic Gaming, but I don't know what's going on there, if they've had talks with Jankos or not. That would seem to be a great fit for a team that's just missing a jungle and potentially a support, now with Afro exploring his options.
Yeah.
So Jankos and 100 Thieves, it's the easy fix, or like the easy correlation to make, but I'm not sold on it.
Yeah, if he goes there, then you're immediately out of import slots. So what's left for you to field out the rest of that roster? I mean, you're looking at something like Alltech Adrian in the bot lane, and then what, Zig in the top lane? There's not that many domestic top laners left that you can choose from. So, I mean, if your first 2 signings are 2 imports, I feel like you're pretty limited with the rest of your roster unless you really have some guys in mind. But I mean, Ryu, Jankos, Prolly did get to the semifinals at Worlds, so maybe they're taking that into account. They've seen what this team can do, and they kind of established that they're a really solid team. So I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'd rather Jankos than Ryu, that's for sure. So it's possible, for sure. There's a couple NA teams that Jankos could maybe fit into, and a couple EU teams. He's got a lot of options. It's all about, what does he want? Money? Winning? Both? Probably both.
It's a good combination.
He'd like to have both.
I like money, winning, and both.
I like winning money.
There you go. Yeah, it's not so bad. By the way, if you're tuning in now, subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit that button. We'll keep bringing you the latest news as the free agency stuff rolls around.
Plenty
Twitter,
more.
@_SC eSports, Facebook, whatever you like, whatever your preference is, get on there. And we'll keep bringing you the latest stuff. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Questions, we're still taking them.
Because they're so good.
Oh, they are good. Kevin Ekstrom says, Huni followed C9 head coach. I appreciate that everyone is appreciating our little Twitter follower escapade.
I mean, if it happened with Olleh,
one thing is that Reaper is already Korean.
Yeah, he's kind of friends with a lot of these players.
So
you kind of need more than one association.
Yeah, you need a couple of interesting follows that make
maybe if he followed Reaper and Jack from C9, you'd be like, oh,
yeah,
curious, most curious Huni. Huni is another guy who is really up in the air. It definitely does not sound like he's going back to SKT. So you're kind of like, well, maybe he should go back to NA. I mean, he's also played in EU, but NA seems to be where the theme is heading into franchising. It's where the money's at. And Hooney, definitely a guy who would be worth an import slot, I'd say. Still waiting for that Hooney reign over reunion.
We're still waiting. What's with Andy? He says, rumors say Doublelift signed for Liquid. What do you think about this? It's not so much a rumor anymore. I expect it to be announced
confirmed
pretty later today. Yeah, I mean, ESPN has put it out that they're looking to sign Double and Olleh. So I wouldn't even call it a rumor anymore. It's a pretty official report, and we're just waiting for Team Liquid to make that announcement at this point. So you can almost take it to the bank.
Oh, almost take it to the bank.
So just stand outside the door.
You're like waiting till the bank opens?
Yeah,
at like
yeah.
8:55?
That's right.
Is that when banks open?
I don't know.
9 o'clock?
I've never been to a bank that early.
I thought you were going to say I've never been to a bank. It almost blew my mind. Never been to
First time Ergat says, will Team Liquid finally make Worlds? Now, I don't care what their roster looks like.
They're going to get finished fourth?
Based on what we've seen, I almost refuse to predict that they will make it to Worlds.
That series that they lost to LMQ, I think they were cursed still at that time. When they were up 2-0, third place match, winner gets to Worlds. Up 2-0, and then they get reverse swept. That is one of the most soul-crushing series defeats that I can remember. And that's the closest they've been.
Yeah, and then we had a full Chinese roster representing North America. What a great time in our history.
Now we have the import rule here that you're dealing with. But, I mean, that roster definitely has the talent and the capabilities to make Worlds. I mean, every single player on that roster was at Worlds just last year. So I think they have the talent to be able to do it. It seems like it's going to be a pretty stiff competition in the NALCS heading into this split, though. Teams like C9 and Cloud9, you almost just expect that to be 2 world spots taken up immediately. So it'll still be tough for Liquid, but they definitely have a chance.
Yeah, and again, it's a good start, but it's also hard to predict this stuff without seeing all the rosters.
Yeah.
Shed Blood, what team do you think will pick up high? Maybe not even to play mid, maybe support or jungle, just for the shot calling potential.
No.
Just keep them mid. Just accept that you're going to have a CS differential in the negatives.
100.
Yeah, the Flame Horizons will be pretty real. But if you're okay with that and you want to get a good face for your franchise, that shot calling presence, then yes, I expect High to be on a roster. I'm sure he'll be on one of these NBA teams. That's a likely situation, whether it's not 100 Thieves because they're taken, but Golden Guardian seems like a good fit. Clutch Gaming, plug him in with Apollo, Hakuho, and Lyra. Not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, he struggled with his champion pool back when there was 3 bans per side. Now that you got the 5 on each, it's even more difficult for him to kind of get champions he's more comfortable on. But yeah, this guy has a huge fan base, obviously shot calling capabilities. So I think he'll probably get on a team. Again, I would have probably liked him over Ryu. I don't know. Maybe that's a ridiculous thing to say. I say a lot of stupid things. But I think he'll probably find himself on, either Clutch City or... Not Clutch City, whoa.
Can you get the city out of there, man?
Clutch
it's not...
Sounds
Clutch
better, Clutch City. Clutch
it's
City
not,
sounds better.
It does. It rolls up the tongue better.
Clutch Gaming or Golden Guardians. It's going to take me a while to get these names right.
I know. It's going to be rough.
He'll probably be on a squad.
Yeah. He definitely won't be on Clutch City Gaming, though.
No, it doesn't exist.
It's dead. Henry Kuhlman with a nice... trying to justify the Phoenix signing, which is hard to do, but he gave it his best.
I respect it then.
Phoenix has 3 years experience in North America, which means 1 more year and he'll have the NA residency. Swagger Fox could potentially be looking into the future, but that's all I got, he says. So he understands it's a stretch.
Yeah, that's really looking into the future.
Man, but we're pretty much as confused as you are when it comes to this move. There's better options, no doubt. But I don't know, they've seemed to have some... They've been sipping on something that makes Phoenix look hella good.
I've got to imagine that Froggen kind of said he didn't want to re-sign there. He probably wanted to explore his other options, and then maybe Echo Fox kind of got the vibe that he likely wasn't coming back, so they quickly jumped on a mid laner. But there's still other options available, still out in the market. Some of these mid laners, especially if you're willing to use that import spot on it. So questionable move, I'll say, by Echo Fox, even if he becomes an NA resident in a year. That's a year.
It's a year.
The inaugural year of franchising.
It's going to be a long year of last place. Enjoy that.
No relegations, though.
Yeah, so you can finish last and still be a part of the squad. There you Marco says, do you think this format is better or the normal one, and which teams do you think got the best players so far? I mean, Team Liquid has all the players.
Yeah, so they got the best, they got the worst.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't get the worst.
No, only the good ones. But, I mean, the system so far, it's got some flaws, obviously. In the obvious one where Team Liquid is signing
even said, he said they should change this.
Yeah, because if someone who's not as player first as Steve comes along and
they could abuse
picks up all these guys, yeah, you can abuse it and be like, give me this much or I'm just going to keep them. Oh, okay, I guess you can have the money then.
Thanks. Give the player half.
So there's flaws, but it's exciting right now anyways with all these new teams coming.
Yeah, they need the first split or even the first year to kind of figure out and find all the kinks in the system so that they can solve them. And some of them are showing themselves pretty early on before any games actually start. So
yeah, that's for sure. TSM, obviously a lot of talk about TSM. Is the TSM roster out? Not officially, but there are a lot of talks heating up where Sven Mithi and Mike Young will join Pearson and Hans. Heavily
hinted at Mike Young, Sven, and Mithi joining that squad. But not officially yet. Waiting for Reggie to post on the TSM.
But of course, stuff gets more solidified when you hear about Doublelift going to Team Liquid, so it just further backs up the initial report.
You got to imagine if they're getting rid of, because he's still under contract, or was under contract with TSM. If he's leaving the team, they got a plan in place to replace him.
Yeah, so a couple of follow-up questions to that. Obviously, Austin says, what's happening to the remaining TSM members, Sven Skaren and Bio? Apparently, Sven Skaren has a pretty hefty buyout cost from TSM, so teams apparently has interest, but where he's going to go, I don't know. Someone that's willing to put up a good amount of money for Sven, who had not the best performance with TSM. Obviously, he still has that high skill cap with the aggressive level that we saw in his days in Europe, dissipated in North America, but we'll have to see what he's doing. And then Biofrost, I don't think TSM sits on him. I'm pretty sure that they're going to try to shop him somewhere.
Teams will come calling for him if he's sitting on their academy roster, no doubt.
Well, there's no way that Biofrost would be on an academy team. I know some people have been saying things like, oh, they'll keep both, and then Mithi can sub out one game with Mike Young, and they put in Sven and Biofrost. I don't see that world existing. Doesn't make much sense to me.
Again, if that's the case, teams will be like, you're subbing Biofrost in every 5 games. We'll play. We'll start him every game.
And Biofrost will be like, please.
I don't think Mithi is going to be subbing out. Especially, why would you mess up the synergy between Sven and Mithi, guys that have been playing together for multiple years? Sven Skaren might end up. I don't know. Again, I don't know what the rules are with all these contracts. Maybe TSM ends up taking a hit for some of that buyout. They just pay for some of it to kind of ease the load for the team taking it off them, but. Who knows? I don't know what the rules are, really. There doesn't seem to be rules, according to what's going on with Liquid. So,
it's a weird situation. What do you guys think of Jankos at TSM instead of Mike Young? It's not possible, assuming Sven Mithi is a thing, which it seems like it is. So
I mean, it's possible. You just couldn't play them all at once.
Which seems like a bad thing to do.
Seems like a bad idea. So yeah, probably not going to
happen. Jar Jar Trump. Great name. Who can TSM pick up for jungle besides Mike Young? Someone also in here says, Shed Blood says, what about Medios for the academy team in case Mike doesn't turn out? So we'll adjust both of those.
What was the first part? I was just thinking about Jar Jar Trump.
Who can TSM pick up for jungle besides Mike Young? Well, let's assume it has to be someone in the area, someone who's North American.
In the area. Yeah. In the North America area.
Right.
I thought it might have been Xmithy. It seems like he's pretty locked up for Team Liquid. I mean, TSM's only going to go for the cream of the crop, as they say. So, I mean, Mike Young, even Medios is he's definitely fallen off the last couple of years. So, I think Mike Young is the main guy they're going to. And if he kind of doesn't pan out, they're screwed.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a guy like Medios, but I mean, I think Mike Young would have to really be struggling for them to sub in Medios or anyone for that matter.
I agree. Noir Meister says, what happened to the other Danish TSM AD carry? If you're referring to Mr. Rolles, he's still sitting on the sidelines, and I don't see him taking a starting spot. They wouldn't ship off Doublelift to get Rolles a starting position.
You never know. I mean,
and he's not going to play over Sven.
He's definitely not going to play over Sven. And would he get a starting spot on an LCS squad? Probably not. Maybe he goes back to EU. But I mean, I imagine it's pretty sweet being involved with the TSM organization, even if you're a sub on the team. So maybe he's enjoying that. I would.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible, and you're making TSM money.
TSM money.
So a lot of questions, so let's start flying here.
All right. I love flying.
What's with Andy? Do you think the top 3 teams, TSM, CLG, C9, will win the LCS, even though it's franchise now?
I mean, TSM, C9, I still got to look at as 1 and 2, assuming, again, this is what TSM's roster is going to look like. I mean, then you're looking next tier, you're probably looking at CLG and Immortals, but depending on what some of these newer teams put out, I mean, it's definitely going to be competitive. You already saw last split in the summer. It was probably the most competitive LCS that we've seen from NA, and I think this one will be even more competitive just because there's a lot of money flying around.
Yeah, there is.
More imports than ever. So there's going to be a lot of solid teams.
Our Team Liquid could have 4 teams.
Our Team Liquid could have 4 solid teams.
That's right. Is the Maxlore thing true? Still Misfits? Yes, he confirmed it on Twitter. Maxlore is going back to Misfits. Chaotic Juggler, do you think that Huni will be coming back to NA? If so, what would he go to? And some people think C9's obviously a potential option now that Impact is gone.
Yeah, I mean, if C9 is looking for other top laners and Huni's coming back to NA, definitely a guy they could consider. He showed he was more adaptable than maybe some people thought when he was on SKT. Obviously, he had some struggles with the team in the LCK, didn't play for a while. It was all the playing time was going to Antara. But at Worlds, Huni was he was the second best player on SKT behind Faker and was pretty solid. So I think he's worth an import slot. Cloud9 might take a look at him. A lot of these new NBA teams would probably take a look at him. FlyQuest would take a look at him. Basically, any of these rosters with an empty top lane spot, I think Huni's a guy you consider because there's not that much domestic top lane talent. It goes Zig and Seraph?
Don't say that name around me.
It's basically Zig. So I think top lane is one of the spots where a lot of these guys are going to have to look for an import.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if you're just tuning in, you haven't heard C9 picking up Licorice, Selfie, and Wiggly. Doesn't mean that...
Those are 3 very funny words to say back to back to back.
Doesn't mean they're going to be on the starting team. Obviously, Jensen and Contracts will still be starting mid and jungle. The question is, does Licorice start or not? C9 might be looking elsewhere with the Impact news of Impact leaving for Liquid. Championship Zed says, do you guys think Jankos is worth an import spot? Absolutely, in my opinion. It just depends on the situation because we mentioned if he goes 100 Thieves, Ryu and Jankos would make up both the import slots, and then you're stuck looking for some domestic options. And there aren't that many great ones, especially in the top lane, as you said. So I don't know the fit, and that's kind of what 100 Thieves have done by picking up Ryu, is saying, we're happy with this, whereas I'm not thrilled about it.
Yeah, I'd rather use an import slot on Jankos more so than Phoenix or Ryu.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, he's a pretty solid guy you could bring in. Regular season, he's fantastic most of the time. It's those big playoff series that a lot of the time he kind of falls off the radar. But, I mean, he's got a great personality, easily marketable guy, and, yeah, he's still one of the premier junglers from EU. So I think he's definitely worth an import slot.
Absolutely. Brendan says, do you think Omar will be the only player replaced on CLG? That decision is up to Afromu because he got an offer from CLG, but he's going to look at the offers, see what's out there. Eric initially talked about the Echo Fox thing just because, and it's not an actual thing, but because Rick Fox liked the report where Afro was exploring free agency. I think he's liking that option even less now that Phoenix is on Echo Fox.
Abort that plan.
Yeah, immediately Afro just gets on the phone. I'm back on CLG, guys.
Please don't sign anyone else. I don't want to go there. So, yeah, I mean, they've already signed 3 of those guys. Huhi, Darshan, Stixay. Yeah, it kind of just depends on Afro. I mean, I'm sure some of these, that's a great pillar for your team to start if you're Golden Guardians or anything like that. Having a guy like Afromu who has a massive fan base, one of the best supports in NA, and he's from NA, I think people will throw a pretty penny at him. Pretty penny.
Pretty penny?
People.
I got you. Some Fnatic stuff, Eric.
Okay.
My name is Erwin and Elliot, wondering what we think about Fnatic and will this roster win spring. First of all, it's not completely set in stone yet, but it looks like you got Reckless, Soaz, Broxa, Hillisang, and then the mid lane is still up in the air as Cap's coming back. Philly's been looking at some other stuff, but I imagine it's going to be pretty similar, if not the exact same.
I don't know why they would get rid of Caps. I mean, he's still a young guy. You saw what his ceiling was when he was playing at his best. He was playing out of his mind. He was fantastic, one of the best mid laners in EU. It was just those games where he wasn't so great and was kind of inting. But, I think there'll be less of those games coming into 2018. So I think Fnatic, they'll probably be one of the favorites, much like Cloud9 is for NA, just because they'll probably have the fewest roster moves. One guy coming in as support, and this was the team who finished first in the regular season for summer. And I think they're probably the favorites to at least get to the finals, because I don't know what the heck's going on with G2. No idea.
Yeah, no idea. Well, touching on that a little bit, what do you think of the rumor of G2 Peanut, the recruitment Perks was talking about? That would be interesting.
That would be interesting. That's a pretty serious communication barrier, I'd feel like.
Peanut, he's been talking in the past. Peanut was always wondering about going to the West. He's expressed that desire before, and this seems like a good option too now that his SKT contract is up. So I expect Peanut to be on a Western team. Where that is, I don't know. Maybe G2 makes sense because it is considered to be the top one available. And you join Perks. Peanut and Perks seems like a pretty dominant duo if they can figure their stuff out. So it's an interesting rumor. I haven't really heard Peanut to G2 yet, but we'll see where the chips lie. I have heard Peanut to EU, just not specifically G2.
Yeah, if he's going to go to EU, that's probably your ideal spot you want to go. NA, yeah, there's probably less and less options going on there. EU, there's still a huge amount of question marks. It's much like NA, where almost every team is making at least some kind of roster move. So G2 probably makes the most sense for an EU squad.
Yes, he does. Henry Kuhlman says, so was Shifter just memeing then, or is he actually going to GG? This is your fault, first of all, because you keep bringing it up.
I am pretty sure he's memeing. He's on the Delta Fox squad, the Stream Dream meme.
The best team in the world.
He hangs out with I'm a Cutie Pie, duos with him too much. He's fully memeified, so I'm pretty sure he was just trolling. I don't think if you were actually on that team and you accidentally say our logo, you wouldn't just go, oops, leaked. I think if you actually leaked some roster information, you'd be a little more concerned about that. I'm pretty sure he's memeing. That being said, I think he could play in the LCS.
Yeah, he could, but this seems like a...
I don't think he will. His stream has blown up lately, so he's doing okay money-wise, I imagine.
Yeah, he'll be all right, especially that Stream Dream money, man.
Yeah.
Jim Howard, who are the best available players for a good bot lane duo in North America for one of these new NBA teams? I like Alltech and Adrian.
Those are some good local boys.
Some good local boys.
Local NA, entire continent local.
Yes. Apollo and Hago are taken already by Clutch Gaming.
Yeah.
So I guess you're running out of some options, but
so that was Alltech and Adrian.
Yeah.
Xpecial's still around.
Biofrost.
The AD carries are
Cody Sun.
Cody Sun, there you go. So Cody Sun and Xpecial you could put together. Cody Sun and Biofrost, that's a premier bottom lane.
Alltech and Adrian.
Laud.
Get out of here.
Laud? No love for Laud. All right.
He's fine.
So basically, Alltech, Cody Sun, Adrian, Xpecial, Biofrost. Probably your top guys left.
Yeah, that's not bad. Elliot says, do you think Niski will go back to EU? Apparently he's playing with Millennium in some sort of tournament right now in Europe. Not that that's a good thing to be doing, but so I guess he's been playing in some EU tournament right now. I would expect it because, again, it's just easy for EU to put him on a roster since he'll be domestic over there. And apparently people are okay with putting guys like Phoenix and Ryu on rosters.
I'd rather have Niski.
I'd rather have Niski too. So in this situation, I think Niski will go back to EU and hopefully get a spot over there. But if not, he'll get challenger offers for sure.
I think he's definitely earned a spot on a starting LCS roster. Again, I would take him over Ryu or Phoenix. But EU, I think there's a couple of teams that'd be interested in him. So it's probably best for his interest to go back there. He's got a better chance of being on a starting roster right away.
Yeah, and we forgot Afromu in that NA pool. Some Afro questions here.
He's not bad.
He's all right. Where is Afromu going? And do you think Afromu will leave CLG? If so, which team will he choose? I don't really expect him to leave. It's a tough one because he's electing to explore his options, which generally means nothing. He just wants to see what's else.
Who's going to give him the most money?
Right. And who's willing to give me a contract, and what kind of teams are these going to be? All those things are going to take into account. You know what CLG looks like. You've been on it for a long time. Maybe wants a change of scenery, get away from the management. Who knows? We don't have that kind of insight. Not many people do. Afram was usually pretty tight-lipped when it comes to his decision-makings, at least during. So I do think he'll eventually come back to CLG after looking at his options, being like, do I go to Echo Fox with Phoenix? No, I'm good. Do I go to 100 Thieves with Ryu and Prolly? I'm going to pass.
Golden Guardians, empty slate.
For sure. That's always an option. So we'll see how the other teams shape up. But as of right now, I expect him to go back to CLG after testing the market.
Yeah, I think he'll likely either go back to CLG or go to something like Golden Guardians that it's empty, and maybe they'll kind of have to sell him in their pitch about what they're trying to do with that squad. Or even maybe FlyQuest, play with Wild Turtle. Maybe. That's a pretty blank slate over there as well, based on their video into the LCS. You don't even see a guy like Moon. The whole video was literally just Wild Turtle turning his head towards the camera over and over again. I think they used the same shot 3 or 4 times, but he's pretty much the only guy who looks to be confirmed on that roster. So maybe over there, but yeah, these other rosters might not look as enticing as he had originally thought. So maybe he just goes, CLG's not so bad. CLG's not so bad.
For sure. Star Trek with an interesting question. Are the new teams forced to import mid and top as NA has a talent pool in these positions at this point? Has a taken talent pool in these positions at this point? I mean, yeah, and even before the talent pool was kind of diminished, you look at what's available. Obviously, in North America, AD carry and support are pretty prevalent. Those are probably the best positions available. Jungle's not great either. And then in mid, like you said, Poe Belter was a guy who everyone was looking at. In top lane, there really wasn't much at all. So yeah, going for those imports makes a lot of sense at mid and top. Some teams would like to take a support here and there if they already have a solid mid piece or whatnot. But I definitely like a strategy of targeting at least one of top and mid for an import.
Yeah, I think, the solo lanes are the most important ones. Bot lane, you're fine. We talked about before any free agent stuff was going on, before anyone had signed anything, that it was basically teams are going to want Poe Belter, and outside of that, you have to use an import slot on your mid lane if you want to compete in the NALCS. Even these top teams, their imports slots are in the mid lane. Jensen, Huhi, Bjergsen, yes, he's NA. But he's really EU. Froggen was one of these top guys before, so basically all these top mid laners in the league were already imported slots, and, NA just goes outside talent for that mid lane specifically because that seems to be where the best guys are. Gone are the days of Skara and Reginald dominating the LCS from the mid lane. Very gone, those days. So you got to bring an import there to compete.
Well, that day still exists. It's just on the TCS, Tyler 1 Championship Series.
Yeah, Skara playing support.
Right, and Voyboy playing Malzahar top. Well, anywho.
You're just creating the meta in the preseason.
Couple SKT questions there. Future SKT rosters, they need a top laner, Someday or Flame or Marin. Some of those guys all make sense, especially with Someday and Flame expressing desires to go back to Korea. And yeah, it doesn't look like Huni's going to be the answer there anymore. So all of them make sense. I don't have too much insight on potential Korean roster moves other than you got the 3 teams sticking together. And I guess some guys who SKT might be interested in, Teddy for AD carry. Beyond, I've heard, potentially to SKT as well.
They seem pretty hush-hush.
Yeah, they do.
For the most part. Marin, obviously a guy who was incredible on SKT and hasn't really put up the same effect on other teams. Maybe you bring him back there. Someday could be a possibility. I don't know if they'd take Flame. I feel like they'd be more inclined to take someone like Someday or Marin. It seems like they might be sticking with Blank in the jungle and kind of have Bangi as his Jedi master, training him throughout the entire thing, his own personal teacher. Maybe he's only there to coach Blank, so that's something interesting. And I really have no idea about Bang or Wolf. Bang had a pretty rough World Finals, as everyone knows, so maybe they haven't really said if they're moving on from those guys or not. A lot of question marks with SKT. I do expect them to put out a pretty solid roster because they do every split, but the LCK is going to be bananas in 2018.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. Follow-up question from Star Trek: is it bad to import someone like Gankus or Lyra as it takes one of those key top and mid import slots? Not necessarily bad, you just need to be well equipped with someone who is already on your roster to have that going, because otherwise you'll be stuck with someone like a Keen, who's not necessarily bad, but it doesn't blow you away. Someone like a Zig, same scenario. You'd like to import someone who's got a bit more available than one of those guys.
Yeah, you've got to weigh kind of the weight on the guy you're importing. If it's someone like a Jankos or a Lira, a guy who you're like, that's worth importing, that's worth me maybe having a slightly less mid or top lane because they're such a great jungler. So for guys like that, I think it's definitely worth it. For, if you're importing, I don't know, let's think of a weird jungler. Gilius. If you're importing Gilius, maybe you're like, okay, maybe that's not quite worth having a not as good top or mid laner as well, because now we don't have a premier jungler either, let's say. So it just depends on who that import coming in is.
100%. So it just depends on what else you have in mind. Let's hit a couple more questions before we get out of here, Eric.
All right.
Do you think any of these NBA teams might sign some LPL or LCK players, and if so, which players? At this point, I don't even know who's available in the LCK, other than maybe a guy like Hooney and Peanut. I know Peanut, again, we discussed earlier, interested in moving over to the West, but I don't think NA is so much on the radar as it is Europe. And Hooney, there'll be top lane inquiries for sure for him. But outside of that, I haven't heard too much, and after those top 4 teams, obviously it gets a bit more blurry as to who's actually a top Korean talent and whatnot. But in the past, we've seen people bring just random guys over, like Team Liquid with Mickey was kind of unexpected and out of nowhere. So I do think that some teams will go on a limb, especially Golden Guardians with the Loco Doco connection. That's something will happen there. But outside of that, I'm not sure.
Hooney and Rainover were pretty random when they originally came to Fnatic. People were like, what the hell is this? What is this team? So yeah, maybe Loco Doco has done some scouting on some of these either sub players on some of the big teams or some of these lower tier guys that people may not have heard of, and they're going to bring them over. But yeah, outside of Peanut and Hooney, those are the main guys. All the other top guys in the LCK are locked up. They're all coming back. So it'll be interesting. Maybe if Wolf and Bang don't come back with SKT, come to NA.
There you go.
Why not?
I heard that Longzhi will disband and that CJ Entus will replace them. Is this true? I don't think it's so much the team. They might be looking for a new sponsorship, if anything. But in terms of disbanding, I don't believe that to be the case.
Nope, sounds like they're all coming back. And yeah, maybe they get rebranded or something, but the roster looks to be pretty set in stone.
Yeah. That Kawaii Llama, very nice. Where do you think Lorlo will go now? TL Academy, one of the new teams. And what do you think about Lorlo now that Liquid's pretty stacked? Do you think Freeze will find a team? He's fully healed and a free agent. So starting with Lorlo.
That's another top lane domestic guy we didn't talk about.
Right, he could be shipped
Zig
off.
And no one else.
Yeah, if you have Impact, I mean, you could kind of do a thing that they did with Ray and Cloud9, where you take them in and out depending on what they want to play. But I'm pretty sure Impact will be getting most of those starts, if not all of them. So I think they'd be okay with selling off Lorlo to some other team.
I think some teams would pay for Lorlo, especially guys who are using maybe, Lira as an import slot, or they bring in another jungler, have a jungler mid import, and then I think Lorlo's a perfectly fine guy to have in that top lane. He had some good moments with Liquid. So yeah, that's another guy we kind of forgot about outside of Zig. Those are your top 2 top laners domestically.
And Freeze? Probably not in North America. No. Maybe Challenger, but
no. You got a couple good 80 carries left still. Cody Sun, Alltech, that could be moving around. So I don't think Freeze at this point in time is worth an import slot. Maybe back in EU.
Maybe back in EU. All right, a few more. Joshua Epstein is Coach Song going to TSM. That's what it sounds like. Sounds like he will be joining that revamped TSM roster. Esbon, where do you see Arrow being? Arrow's an interesting one. Again, you don't really want to spend an import slot in the AD carry role because there's still guys available who are perfectly fine.
That's an LCS MVP, though.
A while back, yeah. Not last
year. Yeah, he, like most of P1, kind of struggled last year. But, I mean, there are, how many teams left who need an AD? 3 or 4 teams, and, again, you've got Alltech and Cody Sun that'll likely be finding teams. So you might have to go for an import for some of these teams, and Arrow's probably a guy who's near the top of that list to bring in. I'd put him above Freeze if you're going to be signing an import there. So you might find a team on one of these NBA squads.
I agree. Last 2 questions, Eric. Magatech99, who do you think is going to start the year as C9's top laner? I'm going to predict Licorice.
Wow.
You can predict whatever Korean you like if you want to.
Maybe Huni. Huni's pretty interesting. I hadn't really considered that much, but I mean, there has been almost no noise out of Huni. Where he's looking, rumors around him. I could see him maybe heading to Cloud9, pretty established organization. I mean, Huni now got plenty of Worlds experience, plenty of international experience, played in 3 different regions now, so I think that's the guy who could come on to Cloud9. He speaks pretty decent English, and he's pretty good at memeing. Back in the day. So
yeah, wow, great meme.
Yeah, pretty good meme. He'd fit well on Cloud9.
Yeah, he'd kind of just fit into that impact, speaking in that weird tongue known as memes. Yeah, but who needs English a little better, I think. So
yes.
Last question.
Here it is.
From Alex. Do you think TSM's going to win the split again?
I don't think they win spring. I think Cloud9 takes it because that roster's pretty solid and pretty much the same. You saw the damage they did at Noise, at Worlds. Damage they did at Noise. I wanted to say the noise they made at Worlds, but close. I went with damage. I think Cloud9 wins.
There you go. Long point short.
To sum up.
Yeah.
Cloud9.
Yeah, I do like Cloud9 too, just because, again, they have that intact roster. But if TSM puts it together, I would not be surprised to see them hoist the spring trophy.
If that's the roster, they might come blitzing out in this, just go 8-0, start the split, and just completely dominate everyone. That's very possible.
It's very possible. That's all we got for today. That's all we got for 5v5 Live today. Crazy show. Lots going on, obviously, in the free agency.
Lots going on.
And as the week goes on, as the weeks go on, we'll keep hopping in to be the bearers of all the news that comes out of these LCS franchising and the roster moves. So stay tuned. Subscribe for all questions. Keep bringing the questions. We love to answer them. Subscribe to YouTube for all the latest videos. We'll put them out as these moves come out as well. So stay tuned for all that stuff.
Send some questions on Twitter. Why not?
Yeah. Hey, we answer them most of the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, stay tuned, and thanks for joining us today. That's Eric Kummel.
That's true.
I'm at Hempstead, and we will see you as the weeks go on.